it's Raina at Cozy Discoveries, and today I am super excited to share one of my most favorite makeovers, and it is of our foyer. My husband and I have been working on a beginner project, but super budget friendly, and it is a beautiful transformation, and it includes a paint mishap that you don't want to miss. And don't worry, it comes out good in the end. And it also includes a Facebook Marketplace find that has been on my bucket list for the foyer. Isn't that just beautiful? And so I found a similar one, and we're gonna do a little DIY on it and set that up in place. So let's go ahead, let's get started. So this is my current foyer, and that is the buffet hutch that I had before. And so I'm in the process of cleaning it all off to make space, right, for my new hutch and my new design. And I did find a sweet woman in my Bible study who wanted this hutch, so I was able to bless her with it for free. I'm starting to go through the drawers, and I found these. My son and I made these when I think he was like 6 or 7 years old, and he's 32 years old now. So I've saved these all these years. I still put them out every Thanksgiving. They're napkin ring holders. They're precious to me. And this is my foyer right now, all cleaned out. And you can see that it is a little bit dark. That door is the only window in the front of the house that lets the light in, and that's why we're doing a makeover on this space. And the inspiration came right from within my own home. There was board and batten placed up in our dining room when we moved in. So the first thing I needed to do was to measure, and I decided that I'm gonna tape out where the battens would be to make sure that I like it and that I measured correctly before I started. So I got out my T-square that I just hauled from the Goodwill bins this past week, and boy, was that an amazing haul. And if you missed it, please click on the link at the end of the video and go and check it out. Now, I started by measuring the board and batten spacing on my dining room walls. And you know what? It's not exactly consistent. And so I looked up online and I watched YouTube videos about this, and I realized that if your battens are off by an inch or less, your eye cannot even tell the difference. So that was so good to know. And I also found a website where you can put in the measurements of your wall and how wide apart you would like your battens, or how many battens you want on that wall, and it will calculate the spacing for you. So I'll put a link to that in the description below. And what I did was I decided I'm going to start off on just the ends, and then I'm going to measure from there. The battens were not exactly spaced because I wanted to make sure that I avoided the light switches and the plugs. So I did have to fudge around with the numbers just a little bit to make sure that I wasn't going to hit any of the wires, and I especially did not want to make any hard cuts. So remember, it's a beginner-friendly project. And you can see that I taped and retaped and double-checked the measurements, which I am so thankful that I did. And I have to say, I am so thankful that blue tape is repositionable and that I hadn't cut all of the wood first. So now that we've got the wall measured, here is how it looked. So now that I knew how many boards I needed, I thought, you know what, before we run over to Home Depot to get our supplies, let me go ahead and vacuum up this door, because that is the beginning of project number 2, to lighten up the front door. And I'm going to do that with some paint. And you can see that I've gone ahead and taped off all of the bottom because I do want to protect my flooring. And I've got my paint, which I'm using alabaster, which is the color of the trim in the house. That is a Sherwin-Williams color. And it's a beautiful creamy white. So it's not a bright white, it is a creamy white. And I did purchase the paint that had primer already in it. And what I forgot to film was that I started by lightly sanding the door with a 220 grit sandpaper. And then I went to work, and what I did was I used my paintbrush to cut in first, but then I used a smooth foam roller to roll the paint on so that it would have a smooth finish and the brush strokes wouldn't show. And just notice that I have not taped off any of the windows. And the reason for that is that even when you tape, there is bleed through of paint many times, and then you're going to have to go back in with a razor blade to get that off. So in the sense of expediency, I'm not taping because I'm going to have to use the razor blade anyway. So I went ahead and finished applying that first coat. And while I'm waiting for that coat to dry, I thought I'd move on to project number 3, which is the Hutch. And this is the one that I found on Facebook Marketplace. And I think it is so similar to the inspiration one. I love the clean lines that it has. It had great storage on the bottom, and the proportions were very similar for the top to the bottom, which is why I selected it. And what a bonus, it was already painted black. But the one thing that differed was the backing of the shelves. In the inspiration piece, it had a lightened up backdrop. And so that's what I want to do to showcase my white thrifted dishes. So I started it all off by taping off the outline of all of the shelves with blue tape, and I put a little paper underneath to catch any drips that I might make. And then I went to work applying the first coat. And after rolling it, I took my brush and I went over the entire thing again. I filled it all in so it was almost opaque so that I could get ready to apply the antiquing wax. And I'm using a liquid one by Waverly that's available at Walmart. And what I did was I took 1 part paint to 2 parts water, and I mixed that together in a bowl. And then I took a paper towel, I dipped the edge of it in, and then I started applying it to that beadboard in an up and down stroke to resemble wood grain. And when I had finished that bottom area, I let that dry. And now we're going to switch back to project number 1, which is the board and batten. And I think this is the thing that made the greatest or biggest difference in our foyer. And it is beginner friendly. My husband and I had never done anything like this before. And in fact, we did have to buy the nail gun to be able to do it. But we had so much fun. We're like thinking, where else can we add some more trim in our home? Now, you don't have to have a nail gun to do this project, but it just made it a lot faster and a lot easier. And if you are in need of a nail gun, I will put a link to the one that we purchased in the description below. He went ahead and he cut the pieces, and now we're getting ready to nail them in. And we are starting with the 2 side pieces that are attached right on top of the baseboard. And the best thing is they are straight cuts, and that's what makes this especially beginner friendly. And he's putting the nail gun at a slight angle to make sure that the sides are fastened in nice and sturdy. And once we've got the two pieces nailed in on the ends, we place the horizontal piece on top of those two and double checked it with the level to make sure that it was nice and even. And then he nailed that in too. Then you can see there's the tape on the wall. So he cut the other vertical pieces, and we use those tape markings to be able to dry fit those into the wall. And he's using a level to make sure that those are perfectly straight. And once he was satisfied, then he went ahead and nailed them into place. He just repeated that process all the way down the walls. Isn't that looking so good? I love it. Well, next came the caulk. So he's just squeezing it out of the bottle and then placing it all the way down the board. And he is going to repeat this process for every place that the board meets the wall and also on the joints between the boards, just in case there's any little spaces in there. He wants to fill them all up. And next came the smoothing of the caulk. And so he's got a wet or a damp paper towel, and he is just dragging that right along the edge where the caulk is placed to be able to take off any excess and also to ensure that a nice smooth line is in place. And he's going to repeat that process for all of the boards. It's looking so good, don't you agree? All right, it is the second day of this project. We have this baby gate up so our little doggy doesn't go in there. But you can see all the molding is up and some of the painting is started. And the door has its first coat of paint on it. Isn't it looking so good? And here it is after one coat. For sure, it's gonna need more than one coat. And we're waiting for a tornado. We're on a tornado watch, but I'm gonna keep on painting. So now I've got 2.5 coats on the door and it's looking so nice and smooth. But I do have paint on the windows. And so I've taken my razor blade out, make sure that it's got a smooth edge so you don't cut yourself. And I am taking it at a slight angle and I am just going down along the paint and pushing it right to the edge of the trim on the door. And I cannot believe how easily this is removing the paint. It is definitely the way to go. But I do have to say, do you guys have a lot of patience? Because this door took a lot of patience, and all of the detail, while it is so beautiful, was driving me a little bit nuts. But I am so happy that I stuck with it and I persevered because I love the way it turned out. And you can see right here that I am using the edge of the razor blade to create a straight line and a cut line because some of that latex was a little bit pesky and didn't want to come off. So I went horizontally or I went across it to create that cut line, and then I went back up and down to remove that paint. And I just repeated this process throughout all of those window panes. And while it is not hard at all, I definitely got a hand cramp because it took me a couple hours to get all of the paint off the windows. Okay, so now let's switch back to project number 1, the board and batten, and we're going to put down the first coat of paint over the entire wall, and also we're going to be painting the board and batten itself. And now we have finished with the 2.5 coats on this board and batten, and I think it is looking so good. And so now we are ready to pull the tape off. And here is where my first paint problem happened. And as you can see, this is not the major problem, but it did leave portions of the blue tape still stuck to the wall. And what I needed to do was go in and take my tweezers and pull those out. And on some of it, I had to use the razor blade as well. And once I removed all those little pieces of blue tape, I was ready to work on the pegs. And these pegs I want to stick in the board and batten. So I wanted to paint them the same color so they are really not noticeable unless I have something hanging from them. So I ordered these from Amazon. Again, link in the description for all the products that I'm using or similar products. And I started painting these. I'm filming with the camera in one hand and I'm trying to paint them with the other. And I was having a really difficult time. So what I did was I stopped and I took out the excess pegs and I just started by painting 3 pegs at a time. And that made it easier to go around all of the edges. And in the end, I ended up painting the pegs one at a time. And I did let them dry. I sanded them and then I painted them again with a second coat and set them off to dry. And now you can see that the Hutch has the antiquing glaze on all of the shelves now, and I put 2 coats of that on there to get it to the color that I wanted. And so now I was so excited to pull off the tape, and this is where I thought I was gonna lose my mind. The more I pulled the tape away, the more it pulled the paint off of the beadboard. And so I took my razor blade out and I carefully drew lines to try and prevent that from happening. And while it helped a little, oh my goodness, boy, did I end up with so many of these spots on all 3 of the shelves that needed to be fixed. So there was no more time for the pity party that I was having. And after all, this was my bucket list piece. So I needed to fix it. So I got the paintbrush out and I went back to touching up the spots. And this time, no tape, because I didn't want to run into this problem all over again. And in reflecting back, I think it was because I had worked on this project over several days. And so I had left that blue tape sitting on there for too long. And in God's perfect timing, as I looked out the window, there they were, 4 little young boy deers grazing on the grass. And they provided me with such calm. And in no time flat, the hutch had been touched up and all the coats put back on, and now it was ready to be decorated. Oh my goodness, that is my favorite part. So here is a quick look at some of the white dishes that I have gathered to place on display in the hutch. Almost all of them were either thrifted or purchased on Facebook Marketplace, or a couple were given to me by some sweet friends, like for instance that gorgeous teapot. So I want to start by placing kind of the bigger pieces to anchor them in first, and then I'll fill it in with some more goodies. I've got my cake plate here, and I'm going to top it with this sweet little bird's nest and this little birdie. And if you missed this video, I'll put a link to that in the description below. I've also made this on one of my videos, so I'll put this link in the description below as well. What I'm doing here is making sure that the items are in balance in the hutch, and I am making sure to stand up the plates and have tall items behind the shorter items in front, also to create some more depth and dimension. So now let's take a closer look at how it turned out. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. And look above, I've got the baskets that I hauled from the Goodwill bins, as well as a beautiful centerpiece filled with some greenery to add some life. And how did we do? Let's compare it to the original inspiration. Oh, I think it's fantastic. And now I really need your help. I have 2 different style rugs, and which one do you think matches the space better? The lighter one or the one that's more vivid with color? I need to order a bigger one for it, so let me know on my community tab or in the comments below. And now we are down to the very last project before the final reveal, and it is to install the wooden pegs that we painted earlier. And my husband is drilling the pilot holes. I've already gone ahead and marked out where they should be. And once he's got those holes drilled, all we have to do is screw in the wooden pegs. And bum, 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 bum. There you have it. Now tell me, what do you think? What was your favorite project? I'd love to know in the comments below. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you so much for supporting my new and little channel and for going on this journey with me. I hope you'll consider subscribing and ringing that bell so that you know the next time that I post a video. So very happy Memorial Day to all. Bye-bye.